Hello. Hello, this is the My Artifact episode number 3724. Today's date is November 25, 2025. It's been almost like a night at 9:32 p.m. Alright, let's just jump into the question. Alright, the question is, what if brainstorming session predict the future? Okay, that's a really good question. Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? This is what if question. Why am I asking this question to myself? What if question is always really interested way to give the answer. It kind of like a force you to think about that reality. And when you try to think about that reality, when I try to construct that reality, I'm kind of like utilizing my information and knowledge and experience that I've been through and try to explain from my point of perspective. Okay. It's not a kind of like a typical question that what is exactly 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. No. It's a kind of like a question is that why 2 plus 3 is not 4. Like basically when you ask this question, then probably you just have to determine everything. What is actually meaning of 2? What is actually meaning of 3? What is actually meaning of plus? What is actually meaning of equal to? And things like that. Then you started the question regarding about the question what is actually matter and things like that. And when you try to explain this thing, it's somehow you actually known about number even more than just number. And this is what kind of like assembly is this thing that what if question is became a little bit interesting. Okay, yeah. Disclaimer, the information that I'm trying to tell you is not exactly right or is not exactly wrong either. It's raw, it's unfiltered, it is just my opinion. So do not believe in any kind of like information that I'm saying, or do not seek for any kind of like information that I'm saying. It's just my opinion, and opinion are subjective. Alright, now let's just jump back to the question. The question says, what if a brainstorming session predict the future? Now what exactly is this thing? Okay, yeah. And basically, can brainstorming session can predict the future? Like basically, can we able to predict the future or not? Okay, yeah. When I ask this question, like when kind of like somebody kind of like say this thing, can we predict the future? Most of people say no, we cannot predict the future because future is uncertain. That is true. Yeah, definitely true. But somehow we could predict the future too. We don't know, but yeah, we could. Like basically is this thing, let's just understand what is actually meaning of prediction. What exactly is this thing? Okay. Let me, if you don't really understanding, I'm trying to kind of like explain you as simple as possible. Okay, yeah. Let's count from 1 to 10. Okay, yeah. What is actually 1 after, sorry. What is the number before 10? 9. What is the number before 8? 7. What is the number before 7? 6. What is the number before 6? 5. What is the number before 5? 4. What is the number before 3? 2. Right. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing. Have you understand the sequence? Okay, do you understand the sequence? Okay, yeah. Now when you understand the sequence, then you kind of like predict what would be the next sequence. Example, 1 after 2, after 3, after 4, after 5, after 6. Now this is the sequence. Okay, yeah. Now basically you exactly know what will gonna come after 7, 8, what will gonna come after 9, 10, what will gonna come after 2743 or 2744. Right? So basically this thing, this is called kind of like a sequence. Okay, you predicted that. Do you predicted that, na? Like basically what is actually number after 8? 9. You predicted that and this exactly happened. Okay, yeah. Now basically this is kind of like a very simple way I'm trying to tell you, but if you still not really understand, I'm trying to give you another example too. Okay, yeah. Okay, let me kind of like somebody giving you my perspective. Okay, Let's just say that I am a office employee. I usually kind of like wake up at morning at 7 a.m. Okay, yeah. I do little bit of workout. Okay, yeah. Then after that, I kind of like assembly took a bath, do my breakfast, and kind of like assembly went to the kind of like a office bus. Okay, yeah. I took office bus at almost like a 9 a.m. and exactly 10 a.m. I will kind of like assembly punch myself like biometric scan, and I will kind of like enter into the office at exactly 9:43 a.m. Okay, yeah. And then after that, I do my work almost like a 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. or maybe kind of like a somebody 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. Okay, yeah. And then after that, I kind of like a punch out. Okay, yeah. And then I kind of like a somebody bus came. I took the bus. I kind of like a came home at almost like exactly 7 a.m. Sorry, 7 p.m. And soon as I came, I kind of like really tired. I just kind of like assembly do little bit of kind of like assembly went outside with my friend or stuff like that. I came home, ate my dinner, watched kind of like a couple of movies, went to sleep. Tomorrow, same thing happened. So basically, this thing, I am a person who can kind of like assembly represent almost like a 80 to 90% of the every person who is actually exist, right? Like almost exactly have a same kind of like assembly cycle, right? So when you kind of like a following the cycle, or when you follow the kind of like a proper routine, then you are become very much predictable. Example is this thing: tomorrow what will gonna do? I will gonna wake up at 7 a.m. I will gonna took the bus at almost like a 9 a.m. I will went to the office at almost like a 9:43 a.m. Okay, I will punch myself and kind of like simply do my work at office. Okay, yeah. At almost like a 5:30 or kind of like a 5:45 p.m. I will kind of like a punch out and kind of like a took the bus. I will arrive at I will gonna arrive at home at maybe kind of like a 6:45 p.m. Soon as I came, I kind of like simply washed myself, took a bath, kind of like simply went outside to watch a movie, or then I came home, ate the dinner, went to sleep. Next day, same thing happened. So, did I predict the future? Yeah, I predict the future. And will that exactly gonna happen? Yeah, exactly happen. Right? So basically, do you understand? We can predict the future. Okay, do you understand that? We can predict the future. Right? It's a very simple thing. Okay, yeah. Like when you follow the proper routine, proper cycle and things like that, we can predict the future. Okay, we could understand what is like not exactly in detail, but kind of like we already knew when will gonna happen, when will kind of like went to the office and things and that and that. Okay, we actually kind of like predict that thing too. Okay, now basically this thing, imagine is that this is kind of like simply a simple prediction regarding about the life. Okay, we actually predict the simple life. Okay, what if can we predict the market? Can we predict the kind of like a some legit future? Let's try this thing. Okay, how do you suppose to try? What kind of like a future that you want to predict? Okay, let's just say predict that key in the next 10 year, what will gonna AI will happen? Okay, what kind of like a AI advancement will gonna happen? Like imagine as a today is a kind of like a simply 25 November 2025. Okay, 10 year after, that means let's just say 25 November 2035. Okay, so on that day, what kind of like a things will happen? Okay, we just have to predict the kind of like assembly. Can we predict the future? Let's try the predicting the future. Okay, so 10 year after, what will gonna happen? 10 year after, probably is this thing. Now let's talk about AI. Now we are actually kind of like predicting regarding about the AI advancement in 10 year. Okay, so probably is this thing. Most of the kind of like a company are kind of like assembly run on AI. Okay, now what's the run on AI means what? Okay, okay, example, if you are kind of like a running a e-commerce website, let's just say Flipkart. Okay, so basically is this thing that Flipkart will also have kind of like a AI engine in itself. Okay, what does it do? It kind of like a things that it can kind of like understand the customer behavior. Like when they kind of like went into the app, what kind of like product they watch, what kind of like they are interested in, they are in, what kind of like they wish list their product. Even if they didn't really buy, they kind of like put it their wish list. So basically, is this thing AI will understand that thing and kind of like showcase such a product that they are kind of like willing to buy. Okay, yeah, or kind of like showcase such a thing that kind of like somebody make them convinced that they should supposed to be buy that particular product. Okay, yeah. And basically it's not just an e-commerce website, it kind of like involved in everything. Okay, yeah, everything means like that. Let's just say kind of like some this thing, a stock market. Okay, yeah, let's just say grow application. Okay, yeah, in India there is a grow application regarding about the stock market and trading and things like that. Okay, by the way, zero, then there are multiple things. Okay, let's talk about the grow app. Okay, yeah. So in the grow app, it's also kind of like assembly AI engine is also kind of like assembly install inside the application. Okay, yeah. Like not individually kind of like everyone kind of like install that thing. No, it's kind of like assembly that AI algorithm is actually kind of like a run on there. Okay, yeah. So basically what does it do? It can kind of like predict the pattern regarding about investor and how they kind of like invest the money and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now because of they are kind of like looking at the data and things like that, they are kind of like understand that what kind of like somebody the stocks they are kind of like buying. So regarding about those stocks, they are kind of like somebody telling the news, exclusive news regarding about their particular stocks, their chairman who actually fire, who actually resign, who actually kind of like a new chairman or things or that, what kind of like a policy implement on that particular company, what kind of like a impact on them, share market and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Basically is this thing that the application will kind of like a showcase regarding about the backend information regarding about the company and things like that, and how that particular company is actually performing really good or not, so that you will kind of like take the proper decision regarding about which kind of like a stock should you supposed to buy or not. Okay, yeah. Now this is actually for the trading. Now let's talk about kind of like SIP, FD or things like that. Now regarding about FD, SIP and things like that, people are kind of like tends to kind of like somebody invest such a SIP which are kind of like long lasting and which kind of like give the high return. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, they are kind of like the AI engine will kind of like showcase me such a stock, such a SIP stocks, they are such a SIP funds, those are kind of like really good, they are kind of like well performed, they are kind of like showcasing that key what kind of like returns that they are kind of like providing. As also they are kind of like showcase the where it risk happen and things and that and that. Everything is kind of like a showcase to the user, so that user will take the proper decision, so that they will supposed to be buy the stocks or kind of like a buy the invest on SIP or things or that or that. Okay, now this is just a stock market. Let's talk about kind of like simply the food application. Same thing, it kind of like simply take the information regarding about the user, what kind of like simply they are kind of like buying. Okay, and what kind of like simply they are like everything. Okay, not just kind of like a food but travel. Every application is actually run on AI. Okay, and it is kind of like a really essential for them. Okay, because even if the customer or passenger or any one person or any user who actually kind of like using this application, they are actually the kind of like a company owner, they are kind of like earning money, even if even if the customer is not actually buying anything, but still they are kind of like earning money if you kind of like simply using their app. Why? Because attention. Okay, because let me tell you one thing now. Okay, have you ever kind of like noticed that ki when you kind of like watching some sort of shoes on Flipkart, suddenly on Instagram there is kind of like exactly shoes I actually recommend, and this is what exactly happened in the ad. Okay, basically is this thing, what do you kind of like simply act, what do you kind of like search on any kind of like e-commerce website, it kind of like resonate on social media platform, and it kind of like a showcase to you and things like that. This is actually because of the advertisement, and it will gonna happen even more in the future. Okay, even more in the future. So probably when this thing will gonna happen, most of people are kind of like simply utilizing VPN or things like that, VPN or any kind of like ad blocker browser or things like that, which can kind of like a really good. Okay, another thing is that key AI can do lot more things. Okay, like basically is this thing right now AI could do lot of things, image generation, video generation and things and that. Okay, but 10 years after, things might be even more easier. Like basically image generation and video generation would be kind of like a so easy that you just kind of like a press kind of like a couple of buttons and things like that, put the prompt, and video will be generated as easy as kind of like somebody doing the text and things like that. Okay, which is kind of like a, and also with a higher quality. Okay, or with also another thing is that YouTube will be kind of like a change little bit. Okay, yeah. Because of that, there is a AI advancement is actually happened, so everyone can make a video through AI, and which can kind of like simply easily publish it. But still, the YouTube has a kind of like assembly will have some sort of kind of like assembly policy regarding about the AI video, that AI video will not kind of like a monetize and things like that. By the way, YouTube are kind of like still some of the mention that AI video will not gonna monetize. They will kind of like upload it. You will kind of like get so much views and things like that, but still it will not gonna kind of like simply monetize, because inside the YouTube algorithm will understand that is this video is kind of like a AI or not. Okay, yeah. And if they understand this thing, then they will kind of like simply. Okay, yeah. Another thing is that because of the making of video or through AI is kind of like a far more easier, then most of the kind of like simply ad agency or any kind of like ad website, or they even if they wanted to kind of like make any kind of like advertisement, AI video is kind of like a bit more easier. Okay, yeah, and bit more convenient and bit more kind of like a cheaper. Okay, yeah. So anyone can make ads and things and that regarding about their product or services and things like that, which is somewhat something really good. But in another case, there is a kind of like a simply the which one kind of like a really good or which one is not. We have to understand that. So for that particular purpose, we might have kind of like a simply a blocker, or we might have kind of like a something that key verification regarding about is this ad is really legit or not. Okay, yeah. So in the future, we might kind of like a simply understanding that what is actually AI and what is actually not. Okay, because regarding about the images, regarding about the video, there is kind of like simply very less difference between the in reality and AI making the video. Okay, yeah. So we might have kind of like simply some sort of thing regarding about regulation regarding about that which one is kind of like a legit creativity or kind of like simply AI video. Okay, yeah. Another thing is that AI will kind of like simply use in a simulation. Okay, now simulation is somewhat something really good. Okay, now basically what is actually simulation? A simulation means like that let's just imagine kind of like assembly, let's just say that what is it like basically, okay, what is exactly is this thing? Let's just imagine that you have to kind of like build a railway platform. Okay, you have to build a railway platform. Okay, so regarding about when you try to build a railway platform in a Bombay Chhatrapati Shivaji terminal. Okay, so what you have to do is that you just have to make the design regarding about where is this platform and things and that. Okay, now you kind of like make that particular design, and you kind of like utilize that design into the AI simulation software. Okay, now what does AI simulation software do? It kind of like assembly use a kind of like a virtual passenger, how it kind of like crowded in that particular platform. Like basically it's kind of like some simulation where kind of like somebody giving the exact replica of that what will gonna happen when that particular platform is crowded by the people and things like that. So where it gonna crowded, what kind of like assembly the train will gonna come, how much crowded will gonna handle and things and that. So when this thing happen, you realize that okay, the crowded is too much and the platform is kind of like too less, there is very less space. So basically we just have to kind of like make the platform little bit bigger. Okay, so you make the platform little bit bigger. Okay, you also understand that if you wanted to kind of like somebody add a kind of like an advertisement banner or things like that, so you just have to understand. So when you have that advertisement banner, then how many people will have attention into that thing or not, you just have to place it according to it. Okay, you also kind of like a place where should supposed to be put the lamp or any kind of like some things or that. Also regarding about there are so many people who are kind of like assembly selling kind of like assembly stuff in the platform too. So you just have to understand that where it should supposed to be sell and how many kind of like people will gonna buy and things and that. Okay, Also another thing, when you try to make the entire platform, then you have to make the accelerator, you have to make the everything. So basically this thing regarding about the capacity, regarding about, let's just say this platform is kind of like somebody hold almost like a, let's just say 10,000 people per day. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing that 10,000 people, when the people who are actually kind of like utilizing that platform, 10,000 people will utilizing that platform, then kind of like simply there are multiple things will gonna happen. How many trains will gonna, how many trains will gonna kind of like run on that platform. Okay, yeah. Then what is actually time and things and that and that. Okay. Another thing is that key convenience, how which kind of like a convenience or not, or things like that. I'm just kind of like giving you just a simple example regarding about everything. That platform, does it have kind of like a ventilation, how it kind of like a ventilation happened, like all the kind of like a simply engineering thing. Like basically let me tell you one thing. In today's world, we are kind of like simulating the stress and strain program in kind of like simply developing any kind of like a product. Not imagine, like basically this is kind of like a real, by the way. Okay, yeah. In today's world, we are kind of like simply, if you wanted to develop any kind of like simply, let's just say propeller. Okay, yeah. I wanted to create a propeller for kind of like simply bigger ship. Okay, yeah. Let's just say that propeller is almost like maybe 15 feet diameter or things like, it's a very big propeller. Okay, yeah. So when you kind of like making that propeller, so you have to engineer that particular thing. Means like that when that propeller will kind of like rotate, at which part of section will have kind of like a stress or not stress, or how many stresses that gonna happen, you're gonna calculate by the calculator. You're gonna calculate like this simulation kind of like a tell us regarding about how many kind of like a force is generated towards the moving forward, and how many kind of like a force is actually created, everything, what kind of like a power is generated and things and that, what kind of like a material should you supposed to use to kind of like assembly making the propeller is kind of like assembly much less weight with kind of like assembly higher efficiency and things and that, everything. Okay, yeah. Like basically in today's program, in today's world, we could calculate the stress and strain regarding about the product and things like that. Same thing will gonna happen in the future, 10 years after. We might gonna utilize the AI simulation. Okay, yeah. AI simulation is kind of like based on every scenario regarding about if you wanted to make any kind of like a policy or things for that. Like a policy would be really good. Let's just imagine that key I am a kind of like a somebody policy maker in the particular country, and I wanted to kind of like a somebody making a policy regarding about the women's safety. Okay, yeah. So if I wanted to make the kind of like assembly the policy regarding about the women's safety, then probably is this thing I just have to understand that how does it amplify. Okay, yeah. If I kind of like assembly include the women's safety policy, then how it would be, how that particular act would kind of like act the benefit to the provider safety or not, or does people kind of like utilize this kind of like things for wrong purposes or things for that or that. Okay, yeah. Because the AI would have the entire information regarding about the people and how they will interact with this particular policy and things and that. Does people will kind of like take advantage of it, or does people kind of like somebody solve the exact critical problem or not? Does it kind of like help to the society or not? It kind of like it kind of like say it kind of like showcase all the kind of like a possible result regarding about that women's safety policy is kind of like a working or not in regarding about your area and things and that. Because the AI will kind of like somebody not only kind of like telling the problem, it also kind of like telling regarding about where this problem created. Like basically there are multiple factors regarding about the women's safety, like regarding about the kind of like some cultural, religious, or kind of like some, let's just say fashion or anything at all. Okay, yeah. Basically in this real life situation we might not understand, because in this thing now we don't really have that much possible result, because as a human cannot determine all the possible result. But when the AI simulation will kind of like run through that, then AI will kind of like simulate every factor regarding about how it kind of like happen, how it kind of like somebody established, how it kind of like somebody the problem it gonna occur and things and that. So basically regarding about the policy or regarding about the simulation, AI will kind of like somebody work in much more better way. In most of the cases, some of the kind of like a country will also run by the AI, not exactly kind of like a AI, but kind of like somebody the AI will kind of like help to run the AI, help to run the country. Because of that key, the AI does have kind of like a power to kind of like somebody simulate thousands of operation at the same time. So basically it would have kind of like a thousands of thought process at the same time, so that it would kind of like make really much more better. Okay, yeah, this will gonna happen. And like simulation is also kind of like one of the biggest thing. Also there are a lot of things will gonna happen. Okay, yeah. If I'm gonna started counting regarding about the AI advancement, there are so many things. Okay, does people lose their job with the AI? Definitely, yeah, definitely is this thing, that is true. But the people who are kind of like adopting AI in today's world, like in right now, then people who are kind of like they will kind of like earn so much amount of money. But the people who are kind of like not adopting AI and things like that, then they will kind of like lose their job and things and that and that. Okay, but still, is it really essential thing that keep in today's world? Okay, yeah, AI is a kind of like a bit more free education, like everyone kind of like giving the access and things like that, everyone kind of like giving the teaching as much free in this thing. But 10 year after, if the people didn't really know about anything AI and things like that, then people kind of like have particular exact school specifically for AI teaching and things like that. Okay, yeah, another thing is that now in a kind of like a student textbooks, okay, yeah, AI is a kind of like some particular subject are actually involved that people should supposed to understand how do we supposed to utilize and things and that and that. Okay, so this would be happen. Also, there are multiple things like the self-driving car, specifically not self-driving car, self-driving taxi. Okay, yeah, because self-driving taxi is a kind of like a far more essential tool. Okay, yeah, basically 10 year after, like basically in today's world, in US they have kind of like a self-driving taxis actually exist. But 10 year after, things might be even more crazier. Okay, yeah, and 10 year after we might have kind of like some particular city entire taxi services actually run by the AI, run by the kind of like a self-driving taxi, 24/7 available with kind of like a very less cheaper price, which also kind of like also electrical too. So which is really good. Okay, yeah, it also available in kind of like a bigger city like a New York or any other cities. Okay, in India we might also have kind of like some taxis too. Okay, yeah, but still there is a lot of rules and regulation will be because of that. When the AI will kind of like run the vehicle, then probably safety should supposed to be ensured not only for the passenger but as well as kind of like some other things too. Okay, yeah, so yes. Another thing is that some people are kind of like completely neglecting the AI. Some people are kind of like simply completely against with the AI. Some people says that think we are kind of like giving a lot of power to the AI, so this is not really good. Some people kind of like doing the protest regarding about this thing that AI we shouldn't supposed to be kind of like simply focus on AI or things or that and that. So yeah. Oh boy, I'm really tired. So this is what kind of like assembly will gonna happen with the AI advancement. This is called kind of like some prediction of the kind of like assembly future. Okay, yeah. Do you understand everything? So basically, is this thing, this is just my thought process, and this is just a kind of like I just brainstorm regarding about what kind of like some prediction will gonna happen. Okay, yeah. And will this exactly gonna happen? And somewhat something maybe almost like maybe 50 to 60 to 70% might gonna happen. Not exactly, but somewhat something really happen. Okay, and this is what kind of like a things it is. Okay, yeah. So basically, is this thing, can we kind of like predict the future when we brainstorm? Definitely is this thing. It's not really that it's not gonna possible. Yeah, if we are not kind of like simply predicting in detail, but still we could also do that thing if we kind of like have multiple people who are kind of like have enough information regarding about particular subject. They also predict the future. Okay, yeah. Example is this thing. Let's just say that key Prime Minister of India. Okay, yeah. So basically, is this thing. Let's just predict the future that key in the next month where will be the Prime Minister of the India. So possibly for this particular for this particular prediction, we have to kind of like look at the schedule of the Prime Minister, how it kind of like works and things and that and that. We have to look at the kind of like some the previous prediction regarding about how this thing happened, what kind of like a routine that Prime Minister follows and things and that and that. And regarding about every possible scenario, we could also predict that next month might be kind of like a Prime Minister would be kind of like a exist over here or there, or might be there things or that. Yeah. So yeah, we could predict the future if we kind of like a brainstorm, kind of like a somebody come together. And can we predict the future? Yes, we can predict the future. And it's not like that key we cannot. Okay, yeah. It's not kind of like complete exactly right, but somewhat something right. Alright. Okay, so alright, so this is it. Should we end? Yeah. This is it, and thank you.